Welcome to 2026, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 296 of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. Happy New Year from myself and everyone here on the screen, and also to you and your families back at home. Hi to my family back at home. We have to go and make the reference like Scott Pruitt or Craig Lowndes would. But my name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and Jacksonville Jaguars super fan, Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Doing great, of course. Yeah. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy 2026. And yeah, Jags doing good. So looking forward to this playoff run that they're about to go on here, and we'll see how that ends up. But yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, and of course, the Niners also doing really well. So at least in that aspect of life for me, that's also going good. And even in fantasy, got one win out of all those leagues. Should have gotten two, but it is what it is. It's fine. Got greedy last year and won 3 out of 4. So I guess it's the way the world balances out. But somebody that we bring on for very important discussions and to bring a little bit more professionalism, because I definitely don't bring the professionalism on my end. When it comes to NASCAR and understanding NASCAR and all 3 major series, but especially with the Cup Series, he's a good friend of both of ours. Now sitting in his new room, his name is Joe Passero. What's going on, brother? Welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Great to kick off a new year. It's been a busy last few weeks with the holidays and with some other personal things going on. So I'm glad to be back on the show. Happy New Year to all the listeners. It's been busy. It's been busy in the NASCAR scene lately too. I've actually, this was probably not the off season for me to try to step away and get some space, but racing, it just follows you, and sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. We'll talk a lot about all the new happenings, everything that's going on, and I'm excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the 2025 Cup Series season. We'll do a recap of sorts, kind of go over what we thought was the good, the bad, and obviously the ugly, which was the end, unless you're a fan of a certain driver. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the lawsuit, amongst other things, all the things that kind of stood out. I was thinking about the good and like being glad that we had those like 5 races with Amazon Prime. We brought Carl Edwards back from churning butter or whatever the hell he was doing for 10 years. And he seemed as chipper. He seemed like a whole different guy. And it was nice to have him and seeing him, Fitz, and Witt all together. It shows that Carl Edwards probably should have been a football player instead of a NASCAR driver, but he's a NASCAR Hall of Famer anyway. So we'll talk about all that stuff. We'll also talk about, the sad news that also took place a few weeks ago with the loss of Greg Biffle. Talk about a guy who was a legend. Many reasons as a legend, but talk about him and the loss that took place with the plane crash. And then we'll get into NFL, a little bit of NFL action, how both the Niners and Jags did, and what it looks like in terms of playoff seeding and the like, and who's playing for the number 1 overall pick. It's the Raiders right now because they went and took a dive against the Giants. But the Giants and the Jets are 2nd and 3rd. So it tells you how bad New York football has been for, I think, a good 10 plus years. I don't have to worry about it because I don't root for either of those teams. But, I know where that was at. We both know where that was at. We've been in that kind of realm. So, and neither of us have the hardware either like the Giants do. That's why I really will never feel bad for the Giants fans. At least they've had Super Bowls in a recent time frame. I was literally listening to like our 294 episode and the live reactions. I forget how how fired up I get while we watch a live game. So that might be. It was hilarious how bad I was listening to it because we were doing the Monday Night Football game, the live. That was the Philly Chargers game, which was like god awful. Like every other play was a turnover. Every other play was a turnover, and I'm yelling. I'm going on my Greg Roman rant because I always have, because I can't stand the guy. The guy still gets employed because I think he has some sort of FBI information because Bug-Eyed Patel probably allowed it to him. But then on John Harbaugh, probably has stuff on Jack Harbaugh from back in the day. Something for Greg Roman to even have a job. I mean, he's terrible. It's the way I used to talk about James Small, and then things turned around for him and Chase, and then I'm like, oh yeah, James Small isn't so bad anymore. It only took him winning at Pocono and then winning twice more, and somehow or another winning a super speedway race, which is completely baffles me to this day that he won a super speedway race. That was largely because the guy backdoored into a championship, ran out of fuel. But let's start with the Biff. I know it's kind of a sad thing to start off with. Obviously, we want to be in a positive mood and mode because of the new year, but the news of Greg Biffle and his family, and then other 7 people total passing away, small plane crash. We think about over the years in NASCAR, Alan Kowicki, months after winning his Winston Cup championship, passing away with a bunch of executives of his sponsor. You look at, the helicopter crash that took the life of Davey Allison and other people and stuff like that. And you consider what Greg Biffle did, during Hurricane Helene, flying helicopters, doing all this stuff to get aid to people that, in some cases still are in a bad place, but at least he tried. He was going above and beyond. And that extension, he had kind of fallen out of the limelight after he had basically retired. He hadn't retired, but the sport had kind of done it unintentionally because he worked for Jack Roush. I think that's part of the problem. You can look at a lot of these guys that worked for Jack Roush and how their careers ended. But for Biff, he did come back, drive for Kyle Busch, won a Truck Series race a couple of years ago, and he was still driving. He drove a handful of Cup races recently, and then the connection he made with YouTube sensation Cletus McFarland, Garrett Mitchell, his actual government. That connection really gave Biff you saw a different side of him, a more fun, more easygoing, because everybody kind of knew Greg Biffle, more of an intense guy, very competitive, very fiery individual. But you kind of saw the more genuine, the more laid back side of him. And you could see why he had staying power, and why he was able to connect with so many sponsors over his career. The loss of life, it's heartbreaking. And of course he had a young son, his wife, they had been married a few years and they'd done so much. But when we look at Biffle, the driver, one of 75 greatest NASCAR drivers, won in all 3 major series. Of course, there's 20-something people that have done that in all 3 major series, but he was the first person to win the Truck Series title and the Xfinity title. And that was back in the early 2000s. Was was found during winter heat by the late great Benny Parsons. He was running the Northwest Tour, Northwest and the Southwest Tour, late models, and was building a name, but he hadn't been discovered in a sense. But BP had told Jack Roush, you need to go and look at this guy. Put him in one of those, I think one of those, he had those, I forget what he used to call them, the gong shows or whatever. And it was interesting when that all took place, and because Tommy Kendall, former guest on this show, legend of motorsport, the connection that Tommy Kendall, the deal that Greg Biffle got to drive the number 50 Granger Ford in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series may have never happened if it weren't for Tommy Kendall and Jack Roush having a dispute between contracts, between deciding what each person wants to do, getting a car, etc., etc. But that deal was made initially with the thought of TK transitioning from road racing into oval racing after, of course, he'd won all these Trans Am championships, and he had shown, he had driven NASCAR on and off over the years. But, I thought about that too, like, it's crazy how this whole world works. And I was texting, TK with that, and, and it's crazy how the world works that way. And, he had sponsors. You guys are junior fans, so the National Guard used to be on Biffle's car before the 25 got it. He was always great at Homestead, and I guess it's crazy how, like, this year we're going back to Homestead for the finale, and he won 3 years in a row. He won the final race of the year 3 years in a row, won photo finish against his teammate Mark Martin in 2005, on his way to finishing second in the points to one Anthony Wayne Stewart, who at the end of the day had a great run in the summer, but Biffle might have been the best driver that year. I think he won the most races that year. I think he won 6 that year. But, he had a run there from about 04 to 08 where he was someone that you had to deal with every single week. And he was always a tough competitor. And, but I think as much as anything, as I open the floor to you guys, I mean, the things he did post racing in a lot of ways, I say post racing with air quotes, I think are the greater connection to our society and showing the man that he was not just a Hall of Fame driver, but he was a Hall of Fame person.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off here. I mean, yeah, it's kind of just still shocking that, all that happened. Because, yeah, like, I think one thing is just shocking for me is how many times he flew in and out of that airport to help with all the people that needed assistance after Hurricane Helene, flying out of Statesville in his helicopter, in his private plane, and then this plane crash happens. And, I think there was some kind of problem or something. They had to make an emergency landing, but, that they all just perished and all of that. Not just Greg Biffle, but, his whole family. So that's the part that kind of just sucks for me personally, is that, all that, all those people on plane died and everything. So sucks to see all that happen. But for his career, I mean, in Cup Series, I mean, 2-time champion in the Truck Series and the Busch Series, or one in each series. So 2-time NASCAR national champion. And then you thought that he would eventually be a Cup champion, because it seemed like every path that he went up, every time he went up, he won a championship. He had a year in the Truck Series, won the championship there, and then won the the Busch Series championship, and you thought that eventually
His
he would be
second year,
Cup
yeah.
champion, and he was there in the second year, but then just didn't happen. And then not everything came together for him in the Cup Series to win that title, but he got close in '05 and um, was never. I mean, after '05, I mean, yeah, '05 to '06, he was pretty good. Um, I think he missed the chase in '05 or no, in '06 and '07, and then got back in the chase from 2008 to 2010, and then kinda after that, kinda fell off somewhat. Then he had a good year in 2012 and 2013, and I think, yeah, it was basically it after that for his career, but, overall, really good driver, someone that, you could see just on based on how his driving style was, um somebody that really brought it to the racetrack every week, and you saw in the way he drove, especially that 2005 race at the end of the year with um, Homestead fighting against Mark Martin for the win. Still one of the most incredible finishes, especially to the season finale that we've seen in modern NASCAR. And even his first win, um, kind of came on fuel mileage there at the end with Bobby Labonte running out of gas at the end of the race there. Um, but yeah, it was kind of interesting, kind of watching that race because he almost got into that big crash that Kurt Busch, started with his flat tire off of turn 2 and made it through that wreck and then was in the mix for, the final run, and they were able to beat everybody on fuel strategies. So yeah, just a incredible, yeah, Hall of Fame career for Greg Biffle in NASCAR. Um, but yeah, as a person, what he did off the track, especially kind of after Hurricane Helene, I mean, kind of elevated him to even a greater level as a just as a person and what he's able to do. And then that kind of led to his connection with now with Cletus McFarland, and he was helping Cletus get into NASCAR, obviously, and Cletus, with his runs in ARCA, um, and everything last year was kind of mentoring Cletus off the track and stuff. So you're kind of seeing that connection form and just how well they were friends, um, and everything in the last year and a half or so. Yeah, it really sucks that this all kind of took place here at the end of the year and everything. So um, yeah, just a huge bummer for the whole sport that we lost him like that. So um yeah, I just hate it for everybody that in his family that had to go through that, and even for for Cletus too, because obviously now he's kind of without his buddy for mentoring him for if he wants to move up in NASCAR, and just somebody he lost as a content creator as well, because I think they were frequently collaborating there in both of their videos and stuff, and you could kind of see that in their content there. So um, yeah, I mean, Greg Biffle was, yeah, just an incredible driver, but even greater as a person, as a human being.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I got into the sport around 2004, 5. So I have very little memory of those seasons. 2007, 8 is really where my memory starts to kick in. And that was, for Greg, a little bit after his time where I think people thought he was going to be a really serious championship contender. Had, like Josh mentioned, those good seasons. 2012 was really strong most of the year. 2013 got some wins, and then I think maybe got a win in 2014. I remember sitting in the stands at Pocono, wanting Junior to win the fall, the late summer race. And there were 3 guys I was worried about to beat Junior that day. One of them was Harvick, one of them was Gordon, and the other one was Biffle, who had positioned himself very well late in that race, in that really interesting throwback sort of 3M paint scheme. For fans probably who are closer to my age who don't go back and look at the past, I think there's an overwhelming underappreciation for the talent that Greg Biffle had behind the wheel of a race car. I'm not going to go down the laundry list of accolades accolades you guys have already mentioned. But he achieved a lot in overall a pretty short career in the sport's highest three levels. For being around for roughly, 20 years before dropping to a smaller, more part-time, status, did a lot in the trucks and Xfinity, especially. I'll focus in more just on his post-racing career. He, very similar to Carl Edwards, got quiet there for a few years, but he never really stepped back from racing, and I think that was made very evident by the relationship between he and Cletus McFarlane. And that relationship in particular, I think, kept him very relevant to a younger group of fans who maybe weren't as familiar with his career. And very much sort of like a Doc Hudson, Lightning McQueen style relationship, right? And, Lightning McQueen, for all the fans he attracts, and I know this is a movie reference and very silly in some respect, but I think it holds somewhat true, right? There is a relevancy that someone has by staying around others. And, after that relationship especially, it's interesting because there are people who I know who don't follow racing, a lot of my friends, who know of Cletus McFarlane because they'll pop up on the YouTube, on their page, on their refreshing page, their timeline, whatever you call it. I don't know. Social media's got so many different terms now. It's different than when I was in college, but it's so interesting when I get somebody, from work or one of my friends from back home and they say, hey, who's this Cletus McFarlane guy? He keeps popping up on my page. And I'll tell them, they'll watch a video. Hey, who's this Greg Biffle guy? When Hurricane Helene, passed by Florida, because in Florida, we thought it was going to get us. And while we were very fortunate, it didn't. It went up north and it tore apart the Carolinas. And I remember probably within 3 days of, the aftermath, I had people asking me, hey, who's this race car guy who's doing these drops in Asheville and these local areas that got cut off? And I'm like, oh, that's Greg Biffle. He's probably one of the few race car drivers that post-retirement I can have conversations with about people who don't know racing and they know his name. And I think a lot of that speaks to his reach and the reach that he had after his career, not because of the racing things that he achieved, but because of the kind of person he was. For him to take time and effort to turn, I think he said in an interview with ABC or Fox or NBC, he was going to do one mission, as he called it, to go drop off supplies in those areas of North Carolina that had been cut off after Helene. And it turned into 8, and it then became a daily thing. How much can we do? And to hear something, to see a story like that for anybody, right? Whether you're a race car driver before or not, because that doesn't necessarily define him as a person. To see anybody do that, there's a level of selflessness and generosity for somebody to be able to do that. And obviously not everybody's going to have a private, helicopter ready to go for them to do something like this. But the fact that he had the tools and he was willing to put them to use and wanted to put them to use to help others around him speaks to the kind of person that he is. He was probably one of the few race car drivers that my many friends who don't know about racing knew of, all because of his humanitarian efforts. So, it was weird to me when I got a text from one of my friends from work at 9 a.m, who doesn't follow racing, doesn't like racing. I don't talk racing about too. Hey, there's this guy that was in a plane crash. And, you just, as both a fan, as someone who's enveloped in the environment of racing and, these people, instantly there's a red flag that goes up. I mean, I wasn't alive, but, we talked about, Davey Allison, right? and Alan Kulwicki, right? If you know about those things and you're a historian of the sport, even if it's just the more recent years of the sport, you see something like the headlines that I saw when you wake up, and even though you can't confirm right away whether or not he's in it, you can't help but have this sinking feeling. 2004, when the Hendrick family, some of the team and the Hendrick family was on that plane, headed to, I believe it was Martinsville. You see certain things and it just strikes such a core with you, and there's this instant sinking level of fear that happens. And you always hold out and hope, it's not true, it's not real. God, they got away before anything, and it's unfortunate that sometimes that optimism doesn't hold to be true. It's really unfortunate. I don't follow other sports, so I can't necessarily speak to whether or not this is something that does impact and plague other sports. But in racing, and especially in NASCAR, with the amount of travel and the amount of on and off planes, it just seems like the risk is so much greater. And it seems as though, it is something that happens. And I hate that. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I wouldn't, especially not on Greg Biffle, for everything he's done to better not only racing, but the communities around him. You can't help but just feel instantly. I know the fans on Reddit are already talking about trying to do something for him on lap 16 at Daytona. Dale's got his lap, the third lap, and maybe they'll do something on lap 16 at Daytona for the 500 this year. And it makes me look back too. I remember, when I was a little more emotionally immature, I remember Dale Jr. got into a plane crash, and I look back on that now, especially now, and I think to myself, what luck. 1 in a billion odds. It really does. It puts a lot into perspective. It puts into perspective the underappreciation I feel I had as a fan of Biffles. It makes me feel appreciative that, when we race on Sundays, there's so much of a level of safety that happens, and people can be strapped into essentially a giant death machine and still walk away and be unscathed. So there's a lot to take away from this. Is a really emotional impact that it had on a lot of people, and will continue to have on a lot of people. And I just hope the best for his surviving family. I hope everybody is able to recover and move forward as they can.
Yeah, that's one other point that I was going to make there is, for us as you and me, Joe, as Dale Jr. fans, going back to, what happened in 2019, I mean, that could have easily turned out real bad. And, if you look back at the wreckage from that, like, that was a pretty bad, even though, like, I think they had already landed and the plane had rolled over or something. I think, like, still the aftermath of that was pretty bad. And, it's still pretty fortunate for Dale Jr. and his whole family to walk out of that alive and okay and everything like that. But um, just sucks that this happened and everything. I mean, the only other thing from other sports that I could think of is recent times at least is the incident with Kobe Bryant and everybody on that helicopter crash back in 2020. So which even that was post career for him. So still I think I guess with motorsports, it's different because, everything's a little bit everybody uses more private planes in motorsports, whereas, other sports, I think they all use chartered or, you know, bigger planes that are supplied by major airlines and stuff like that. So, um, just, hopefully, we can move forward and um, continue to honor his legacy by doing something like that on lap 16 or continuing to be like Biff, like what Cletus said or is going to say in his videos now, and just be a good person, help other people, and do stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's really all we can do. I think for a lot of the people that respected Greg Biffle's talent and driving ability was one thing, but just remembering him for everything, for all that he was able to do. And I mean, I think every broadcast group will do their own thing as we go along. I think the ones, especially I think for Carl, when they bring the Amazon deal back in May, I think there will be a little bit more emotion connected to it because he was close to Biffle for so many years. Mark Martin, of course, being basically the godfather of Roush Racing. He has a big social media presence. I think we'll probably get some more from him. I know Jeff Burton, of course, being on NBC, spent many, many years with Biffle. I think that's where you'll get kind of more of an organic view from those guys. I mean, McMurray, of course, works for Fox and for CW, so he's another one. It's interesting thinking about all them guys that were teammates, because Roush had 5 cars, so I'm trying to think back. Like Reagan, I think Reagan still works for Fox Sports in some way, but and I'm sure it's like there's a lot of guys that he drove with. Yeah, and Kurt. Yeah, I mean, but Kurt at least he's more of a behind the scenes guy, so and then there all the stuff that's been going on with 2311, which we'll get into here in a moment. But yeah, I mean, be like Biff, as Cletus likes to say after all of his videos. So it's a sad thing, and remember the legacy, remember the good days and the good times and those wins, and remember him winning races at Dover. He'll always be good at Dover. Could win at Pocono, as you said, Joe. I mean, he would win at Homestead. There's just certain tracks that were like tracks that Biffle was very, very, very good at. I think the one where he ran out of fuel at Kansas, and then people were all mad about that when he didn't cross the line under full power, and he won that race, and people were all butthurt about that. That one was a good one. I think it was like 07. But, like I remember him winning during that in a blank number 51, basically a blank 51 truck for Kyle Busch. And he goes out there, Texas, after not being in a truck for 20 years and goes and wins a race. That was pretty cool, part of that triple challenge or whatever they had. And, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You just come off the that's like when Sam Hornish did that when he was teaching, when he was a substitute teacher, and he jumped in a 22 Xfinity car and then he won at Iowa or something, or something like that. Or for Joe Gibbs Racing, something like that. But, we'll miss you there, Biff. And I think as much as anything, I like the video, the tribute video, when he kept on emphasizing, I taught him everything he knows, but if he screws up, it has nothing effing to do with me, or whatever the hell. It was funny as hell. He kept on emphasizing that. I've taught him everything he knows about oval racing, but when he screws up, it has nothing to do with me. But yeah, we'll miss you there, Biff. Godspeed up there. I'm sure you're having fun with Benny Parsons, laughing and having a good time up there. Let us change it, make it a little more upbeat here.
Wait, can I keep it sad for just one more second?
Sure, why not?
Sorry. We'll keep it sad for one more second. We'll get it out of the way. I know we're not going to have as much to say because of, he's not a race car driver, but father of Denny Hamlin recently.
Yeah.
Dennis Hamlin just passed in a house fire. Wishing best to the Hamlin family. And Denny, I can't help but think about Denny too right now in these tough times. You know, he's been through a lot, and I know we're going to get to it in a little bit with everything going on with 2311 and front row rather. But you can't help but feel for him. It's been such a tough, emotional year for Denny Hamlin. He gets the high of getting his 60th win. Then a few weeks later, the low of being within, 2 or 3 laps of winning his first championship that continues to elude him, to the high of, being successful and ensuring the safety and the well-being of the sport for years to come and for the teams for years to come, and everything involved with that fight and his passion for what he does, to this. You can't help but feel for Denny. And again, I know we'll not have as much to say about Dennis Hamlin, so I'll just keep it to that. I hope that Denny's doing okay. I hope his family's okay. I hope they're recovering from this tough time. And best wishes to his mother, was also in that house fire, but is recovering, the last I read. So best wishes to them. We'll keep them in their memories too, moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. For the whole Hamlin family, and to not just, for Denny's mom, for recovery, and also, like what we're about to talk about here, it was quite a year for Denny before this took place. It was one of his best years of his career, in what has been a Hall of Fame career anyway. Won the most races on the circuit this past year in the Cup Series, and at the same time was suing NASCAR with his partner, of course, the great Michael Jordan, and really Curtis Polk. But you're driving for one of the biggest teams in NASCAR. You're driving for, granted, FedEx is now gone. He has Progressive as his new main title sponsor, but he's got other partners. He's got all the partners he has to take care of in regards to 2311. He's got a team. He's got 100 employees. They were having a kid. He has his firstborn son. They're having 2 daughters. They're getting married. All these, finally getting married. All these different things going on. And somehow or another, in 40 plus, Denny Hamlin had taken a step maybe above what he was even 20 years ago when he came in as a rookie. He's, of course, flirted with championships. He was 3rd in his rookie year. He had probably had the championship. He was a favorite with 2 races to go in 2010. And then we have a bunch of them since, especially with the playoff format, which I think, in terms of good, bad, ugly, I'll start off with this. I say the good, to me, was Amazon Prime and showing how you can actually broadcast a NASCAR race without it being completely flooded with commercials. You have a organic pre and post race. You have the natural feel of the crowd. You brought back people you brought Carl Edwards in, and he is so knowledgeable and he has a passion for it. And you never saw that side of Carl Edwards. You always saw roid rage, when he would run over everybody. But he genuinely he's not, the guru, like how everyone would say Gomer, Hook, aw shucks guy. He actually is a very knowledgeable guy. And I guess he didn't know he missed it. And then he came back and he was like so beloved and he couldn't believe it, and it was like, well, yeah, because there are so many people who were fans of yours from when you were giving out your business card to anybody that'll take it. When you were just some guy out of Missouri, and made a career and became a NASCAR Hall of Famer. Corey LaJoie actually found a job he was good at because he's not a good race car driver, but he can actually be a really good analyst. I mean, I say this about Corey LaJoie and Jess. The fact is he's a good mechanic, good crew chief, and and now we know he's a good analyst. But he insists on being a race car driver. I don't know. I guess if they'll pay him to do it and he brings the money. But, the broadcast was unique. It was genuine. It was organic. You had good, at least, and the races they went to, and you made Pocono an event. I haven't felt that much energy for a Pocono race in years. But they made that Pocono race an event. Granted, my driver won too, which also made it really good. But, you think about the Charlotte to 600 was an amazing presentation of you come off of Formula One and the Indianapolis 500 and then you're having to come in and that's your first race. And the Coca-Cola 600 was a great race and you had a great finish. Ross Chastain going out there and getting a big one. And they showed and I also give this to CW. I give CW credit. They had the Xfinity Series the whole year. It was it was a strong season. There was a lot, and I mean, granted, with Connor Zilic and being how dominant he was and junior motorsports. But I think television coverage, we see what good television coverage can be. Now, will some of these other people, aka Fox, especially with how bad they do the trucks, and then also maybe to a lesser extent NBC, but I like NBC, how they can make some adjustments, and will they take the advice of Mark Martin and be more towards the fans instead of chasing ratings, which are not going to come. The ratings, we're not getting 2000 peak mid 2000 ratings anymore. That's just not going to happen. The way that social media is, the way that people consume content, you're not getting people to watch the sport like that anymore. I've watched this sport this year is going to be it'll be 34 years as a fan. There's a difference to what it was when I was freaking 6 or 7 years old to where I'm at coming on 41. All right. I got other things going on in life, and so and I think that's the same for all of us, but, the bad, I mean, I think the car, is bad. Granted, Chase Briscoe got in a good one, and now he doesn't look like he's a 20th place driver. So I guess the cars, it shows that it depends on the team. But I think from where we started with this platform, a platform that Jim France is so vehemently for, because he loves sports car racing and it's basically a GT3 car, where you had so much parity. We've gotten back to where we were in previous generations of cars where you literally have 2 or 3 teams that can compete. Granted, you consider who has the most capital, I guess that's going to happen anyway. But, essentially last year was JGR, Hendrick, and to a lesser extent Penske. And then outside of that group, you need to start going and searching through the stats to find people. I mentioned Ross Chastain. That was the standout moment of his season, and he finished top 10 in points. But this is a guy who did the wall ride a few years ago and finished second in points, and then won the season finale a couple years later. They put one of the biggest sponsors in the sport on his car. like, what are we doing here? When someone like that is not able to compete on a week-to-week basis. Where you look at, you can make the argument in part because of SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, the Rookie of the Year, who is an all-world race car driver before he ever became a NASCAR driver, winning all these road course races and stuff like that in the the Trackhouse team. Yeah, they're a top team, but until the last couple of months of the season, were we considering Shane Van Gisbergen a factor on an oval? No. Were we looking at Trackhouse Racing as a contender at a lot of these racetracks that weren't a road course or weren't specific to something that fit Ross Chastain? No. So it's like we're getting further away from a competitive deal, unless you go, I guess, super speedway racing, where it's just a free-for-all and everybody's just pushing until somebody destroys the whole entire field. Or you're going to have tire failures like they had at Phoenix the whole entire freaking day. We're getting away from the sport, and I think with a lot of the geniuses they seem to have running the sport, they've gotten away from mechanical ingenuity, and they've made this into just, they've made this into F1 with stock cars. And let's be fair, Formula One races are over after the first corner in most cases. After the start and after the first couple of corners. I've watched it most of my life. Josh has been watching it for a long time. We basically know that. There's a reason why the F1 segment on our program for probably a good couple of years lasted about as long as the first lap of races. Do we want that, or do we want a race that is it's going to take 3 hours, but at least there's a chance? All right. The ugly is the finish of this season. The playoff. Playoff is straight trash. You can't have a one race winner take all. It's not the Super Bowl. All right? There's a reason why the Super Bowl is the most watched thing every year. It's because that's it, We want both of our teams to make the dang game because it matters that much. The reason why Tony Stewart's championship in 2011 was so epic was because he won 4 races. He won 2 races, went in the tank, came back out of nowhere, was about to go a lap down to Jimmy Johnson at Martinsville. Jimmy Johnson and Jeffy at Martinsville. Somehow or another held him off, came all the way back, went on the outside on a final restart and passed Jimmy Johnson to win. Then won the next week at Texas, finished third needed to move over, I think, Nonak or Burton. I forget which one it was. It was over in the 31. I think it was Jeff Burton. And then to go and be in a position to go through everything he went through that day at Homestead. You have transmission parts coming out of Kurt Busch while he's flipping off the first lady and the second lady of the United States, amongst other people in the garage, cursing out Dr. Jerry Punch, doing all these other things he was doing, getting himself fired from Penske, destroy the front end of the car. You had, what's his face? I'm forgetting the crew chief's name, Darian Grubb, goes and throws a gamble on fuel before a rain delay that they were going to make sure they ran this one out. It depends on who it is, but they were going to run this one out. Seems convenient. That might have been the only time they ever did a favor for Tony, but, he goes and makes like at least 3 or 4 crazy maneuvers on restarts, and then passes Carl Edwards late in that race to win. His 5th race to tie for the championship. So literally it was a tiebreaker after 36 races. Your tiebreaker was him winning. If Carl Edwards wins that race, Carl Edwards is a champion. We're talking about Carl Edwards TV guy now. And Tony Stewart's a freaking dad who drives Top Fuel dragsters now. Like, that was genuine. That was a once-in-a-lifetime scenario. And the geniuses at NASCAR is like, we need to do that every year. Newsflash. That's not possible. You can and then pick about the worst track you can find to go and have a championship race at. A flat 1 mile oval with the goofiest pit road setup that's ever been made in mankind. And then go and have that as your finale. Like, come on, man. Like, stop it. I know we're going to have like a 4-race, 3-race championship thing. They want to make it this whole big secret, whatever. They're probably trying to figure out what they're going to do with SOD and Phelps and all these other douchebags that got exposed during Discovery by the NASCAR media. But we need to stop with this. We were a couple. I mean, the Cup Series one was pathetic. I don't care. You can be a Kyle Larson fan. You probably don't listen to the show if you are a Kyle Larson fan anyway, so I don't really care. If you are, whatever, sorry. But he didn't do jack shit to win that title. He really wasn't great that whole entire round. You know, he was all right. If we're going to make an argument about who was the best Hendrick car amongst those 3 that were in contention, you make freaking Cardboard Byron was the one that was there, and then he's the one that blew the tire and went and hit the fence and basically opened the door with 4 laps to go, 3 laps to go. But yeah, Corey Heim needed to make an epic restart to save himself from having another Denny Hamlin. No offense, Denny, I'm sorry, but, you know, that's what it is now. You know, you're just a verb, too. And then we had, in the Xfinity deal, Connor Zilic win 10 races. You had Justin Allgaier, one of the most consistent drivers, trying to get a repeat championship. And then Jesse Love basically shows what the format is. Win at Daytona, hold on for dear life for most of the year, somehow position yourself in a way to get to the Final Four, win the last race. That's all you really need to do. It's crazy. I know it sounds insane, but that's literally, what is it? Reddick did it. Reddick did it a while back. When he was driving for Junior Motorsports. Like, one of the years I actually had luck is him wall riding at Homestead. He goes and has a side by side with Elliott Sadler to win Daytona. Basically disappears. Comes back and gets to the Final Four at Homestead. Wins that race. We have a champion. I mean, I like Tyler Reddick, but that's literally what Jesse Love just did. So there you go. That's my good, bad, and the ugly. I open up the floor to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, can't really follow up with that one because, I mean, obviously a lot there, but I mean, I don't know. There was some good in this season. I mean, you had some races that were good in terms of the finishes. I mean, you know, Daytona, the second Daytona race always ends up being generally a good race to watch. I mean, Chase Briscoe, like you said, was on the rise this year and made it to the championship force. So yeah, good there for you as a fan, obviously. And yeah, after years of struggle at Stewart Haas, now first year he's established himself as a contender there. Yeah, the TV coverage for Amazon, I can't really say for everybody else because I think everybody else was just terrible in terms of TV coverage, but Amazon set the standard. I think I'd rather just have my Amazon Prime subscription pay for the whole season as a fan to watch that there. So um yeah, I think the the car has equalized itself now to being like everybody's kind of figured it out now. And now they're bringing in some changes and everything, but um now it's just kind of a processional in a lot of ways. Um, so yeah, the car needs to be fixed. Obviously, the horsepower change is probably not going to be enough from what we've seen. So I don't think it'll make that much of a difference in the racing product. So yeah, there wasn't really too much good stuff that really came out of this because I think a lot of seemed like there was like a good stretch where I think people were tired of SVG winning after a while. That was like I did like that he kind of established himself as kind of the guy on road courses. Some of the road course races were okay to watch. I mean, I liked the finish to Circuit of the Americas. That was a pretty good finish there. Um, but yeah, there was SVG established himself a little too much here with winning all but the one race there at Coda. So, um, then we had I think Dover wasn't really that good. Iowa was not good, and I think it was just three to four week stretch where I think people were just tired out um, by the next gen car. So, um, yeah, that wasn't really great, and I think now we kind of need to make some adjustments on how to make the racing better in the Cup Series, and um, we'll see what NASCAR comes up with here after a tumultuous off season here with the lawsuit. But yeah, a lot of ugly. Yeah, the last race, obviously, I was there and saw that finish, and I think what makes it, I mean, obviously, what makes it really bad is Denny Hamlin was out to the 3 second lead, um, and basically had the field covered, was going to win that race, and then yellow, untimely yellow. I mean, for at least it wasn't like a stupid debris caution, right? Because we've seen that in the past. 2016, Jimmy Johnson, I think, um, a questionable caution there. But then this last race, obviously, flat tire for William Byron, pounds the wall, caution, and then they committed to four tires. Still feel like we haven't really gotten the full explanation from that, but it seemed like I think they were kind of still thinking like kind of like the Truck Series race on Friday that four tires would kinda cover, but, um, ended up being 2 tire call from the 5, and I think the 19 also had that, and then great restart by the 5 and the 19, and, Denny just wasn't able to close there even on 4 tires, and then you had guys staying out as well that kinda complicated the finish there. So, yeah, just a really ugly ending to the season there, overall, just from objectivity standpoint there, and yeah, you're right, you can't really manufacture an exciting finish. That's why, like you said, the 1992 stands out. 2004, even though it was the chase that year, at least you had time to build up um, some kind of drama. And the same thing for 2011. And we talked about F1 earlier. Well, the only this F1 season at least showed the value of a full points championship, and even going back to 2021, that was an exciting championship there in that series. So um, you need more than just one race, and I think you need more than four races really to kind of cover it. So we'll see how exactly. I think we all know it's going to be some kind of 3-3-4 format, but I guess the details we'll find out here in a month exactly of how that'll work out. Whether they're just going to cut off guys or every 3 races and then to the final 4, races, or are they gonna, like, do some still have bonus points or, some kind of format where, we have this playoff format where, playoff points come into to play and all that stuff, so we'll see exactly how the format will lay out here, but, it's not gonna be the change that I think a lot of people want, which is full season, obviously, so, um would love for them to go back to the full season because I think it's just proven now, and you're seeing it now that supercars is kind of adapted their own version of this. Like even that championship wasn't really like that good to watch. So yeah, that was obviously a lot of ugly there. I mean, I think if you're the TV coverage from Amazon that was good. Bad stuff was the racing was generally bad. I mean, there was still good stuff, right? But then the ugliness was overall just how the season is structured and everything. But um yeah, makes you like not really like with the kind of just taking half measures, with the horsepower and then the 334 format here. Those are half measures to resolve everything here. So I guess obviously the big good thing was having the um, charters be permanent now from the settlement for the lawsuit and everything. But even that is still, we're still kind of settling the dust there. What will NASCAR look like here in 5-10 years after this lawsuit? Obviously, there will be permanence and stuff, but what'll come from that? Um, because obviously now it's gonna be harder for new teams to come in. Obviously, Junior wants to go to the Cup Series, right? But now he's really gonna have to probably pay a pretty penny to make it into the Cup Series full time with Junior Motorsports with whatever the charter values are now, because obviously they've doubled in value at the very least after the charters were made permanent. So we'll see how that plays out. But um, yeah, there's gonna be interesting to see how 2026 plays out and everything. But I guess all three of us will still all be here to watch and talk about it in some shape or form.
Yeah, this was a very interesting season for me in a lot of ways because I think, I love to project positivity. I love to be positive. And there were things that came out of this season that were positive. But I think slowly as I continue on from the good to the bad to the ugly, kind of to echo you guys, it was not a great season. And a lot of that I think actually had to do with what happened off the track as opposed to on the track. So we'll start with the good. I think it's good that NASCAR is showing that they're open to change, finally. It's good that they're saying, okay, we'll reconsider this playoff format. I don't know if 334, because I know that's the heavily rumored one. I don't know if that's the right call, but I think it's good that they're showing a willingness to now say, okay, maybe what we have right now is not the best. Let's go back to the drawing board. I think it's good, the fact that we are finally getting these tires, maybe not quite to the extent of the Phoenix tires, but I think it's good for the short track tires. We're finally trying something. We're finally willing to say, these tires are not really good. Let's try to make a softer tire. Let's see how far we can push it. Maybe at Phoenix, they found their limit and they say, okay, we don't go that soft anymore. But it's good because the short track racing, I think, is something I've at least continued to hang on to as a real fault with this next gen car. And I do feel like they're starting to find some direction with that short track product, which I think mainly has revolved thus far around the tires. Again, the horsepower, I like that they're open to change. I don't know if it's going to be enough to see any sort of significant change, but I like the fact that they're finally willing, especially with how reluctant they were, specifically with the horse. Oh, well, it's costing more money and blah, blah, blah. And they're throwing out pretty much any and every excuse under the sun on God's green earth to not raise the horsepower. And finally, you show. So I like that. I like that from NASCAR. I think we live in a society where especially big businesses are afraid to show any form of weakness, and they're afraid to show anything that might imply to the people watching them that they were wrong. But I think it's important to remain accountable as a business, as a person. It's important to remain accountable for your product and say, okay, listen, maybe what we're doing right now is not the best we can be doing. What can we do to move forward? So I really, really like that. And I have to say, I really, really, as far as the Xfinity season goes, I really enjoyed the Xfinity season. I thought there were a lot of really good races. I still think that the Xfinity car is the best car. I think it races the best at all the tracks. I think there were a lot of really amazing and great storylines. And maybe partially that's biased because a lot of it revolved around Junior Motorsports. But Parker Kligerman at Daytona is really the one that sticks out to me. I love that story, right? From, having that penalty in trucks, not getting the win in that race, to then coming back in the Xfinity car under these very strange circumstances and being able to win at Daytona in the Xfinity Series. So I thought that was really cool. And you did. You had a lot of really great finishes throughout the year. I think back to Chase Elliott's finish, winning at Kansas. All the Toyotas beating and banging on each other opened the pathway for Chase. Think about that summer Daytona race, that 4 wide at the finish line, Ryan Blaney coming out on top. Even the Daytona, I know people weren't very happy with it at the time just because, wreck on the last lap. But even the finish at Daytona in the spring, the 500, with Byron wiggling his way through that wreck to take the top spot, cross the finish line first. I think there were more than a handful of really amazing finishes. And whether or not people like the circumstances around them is another story. But I think those are the two really positive things that stick out to me from this year. Aside from the aforementioned Amazon Prime, I agree with Josh. I would much rather at this point just see my Prime membership through and have them broadcast the 36 race product. And I hope that what they have now established, I hope raises the urgency for the other broadcasting partners to push forward, and they ask, how can we present the product better? I'm really excited to see if anybody else has learned anything from Prime when 2026 comes around. The bad. I think the bad, it's to me, it was such an extreme season that I don't really know that bad is a good enough term to describe a lot of the bad things that happened this year. So I'll kind of use bad as like a more neutral ground. I thought the in-season tournament was bad. It was not good, guys. The final 4 were Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek, Tyler Reddick, and Ty Gibbs. One of those drivers made the playoffs. All 4 of them were winless this year. Only one of them has a Cup Series career win in Tyler Reddick, and he didn't even make the final at Indianapolis. You have the 32 seed Ty Dillon, which sure, you have the upset storyline, but how do you have this guy finish between, 15th and 20th every weekend, and all of a sudden he's winning, got a chance for $1 million? It's insane. And then you have Ty Gibbs, who in more recent years has probably been one of the larger letdown stories of talent. And he's still got the talent. I still have the confidence. I think the switch to the next-gen car, if anything, probably hurt him. But that whole tournament, it was a big gimmick. There were a few little things it did here and there. Bubba and Alex Bowman kind of getting into it at the Chicago street course for that position to advance. But quite honestly, it didn't really do anything. It didn't really do anything for me. And I think for most fans, it didn't really do anything for them. It was there. It was more fun when Denny Hamlin was doing it just as a little piece of his podcast. Just meh, what are you going to do? I would say that was, saying it was bad might be a little too harsh, but it wasn't great. We'll put it that way. I think also bad, you look at the, actually, no, we're just going to go right to the ugly because this is part of the ugly. The playoff format. I have been on this show, and I said it earlier this year when I was here as a guest. I've been on this show. I've defended the playoff format for a handful of years. I thought it was good for the sport. I thought it was maybe in need of minor tweaking, right? Maybe less drivers, maybe a slight format change, but nothing crazy. And I even remember specifically saying that it still produced worthy champions. And I think especially as we move into the next gen era, an era with more parity than we've seen in the sport in quite some time on a more regular basis, it produces a lot of questions, especially when it comes to the format. Logano 2022, I don't really, in retrospect, don't really want to rag on that championship. It definitely wasn't his best year, and I certainly wasn't the best driver that year. But to say he shouldn't have been in the Final Four, I think would be an unfair statement.
2023, Blaney, likable guy, on and off the track, good race car driver, becomes the first driver to not need to win the finale to win the championship. And definitely, see, he had the car to do it. Just Ross Chastain, the strategy was a little better. Their car at the end was a little bit better. No big deal. But, you know, again, you question because he had a relatively quiet season up until the playoffs. And you question, okay, well, are we racing to win the championship, or we're just racing these 10 races and the other 26 we're going to put our cheapo stuff out? That way, if we crash, whatever. You get to last year, 2024, and I think that had the most questions around it. Joey Logano, at best, most of the year was like a 10th place car. And even that's generous. And then you get to this year, and while I think you had a worthy Final Four, again, so many questions around the best driver, again, not winning the championship. And, you know, you can't blind me with the lights were too bright BS that some people want to say. That's not the problem. The people who say that are the problem. And you have 2 out of your 3 National Series championships end with a bitter fan base. And more often than not, I would say, listen, fans, you know, as a fan base, we need to recognize the situation, right? It's not good that we're in a playoff format that emphasizes winning. And we have a driver in Xfinity who wins the first race and the last race, and they win the championship. What the hell? We had a driver who won 10 races. Why didn't he win the championship if the format is about winning? And then on the other side, you have a driver who won 6 races, who the most in an era of parity in the Cup Series. You have a driver who won 6 races, is 3 laps away from winning the championship. 1 wreck, 1 caution, boom, and his season's over. And he didn't know that at the time, but you can't help but question, what are we doing here, right? From a playoff format perspective. It doesn't make sense. And even the fact Corey Heim, right, had 11 or 12, I lost count, but 11 or 12 wins, and the fact he had to do what he needed to do, while maybe exciting on the racetrack, statistically is a little ridiculous that he had to do what he had to do in those last few laps at Phoenix. He should have had the championship under lock. There should have been no reason he had any threat moving into Phoenix. Part of it's the times, and part of it is the playoffs. You have to give a grain of salt because of the context of what the format is. That being said, when the fans are consistently saying the same thing in a fan base that historically does not always remain unified, especially in recent times, especially since we've gotten on Twitter and Facebook and all these other social media platforms, do you not question what is going on? Like, at some point you have to say, what are we doing wrong? And it's unfortunate that it took a lawsuit, multiple years of backlash from fans over a playoff format, fans invalidating essentially the results of the product that you put on week in and week out. It's unfortunate it's taken for all of that to happen for them to kind of finally come to their senses and realize, maybe it's time to try something different. It's just unfortunate, right? The TV coverage, outside of Amazon, I think NBC did okay. I think TNT did okay. Fox was terrible. Fox has just been terrible the last few years. It's painful to watch. I'm glad they have less races now. I hope maybe they'll invest more effort into those fewer amount of races to prove that they should be around. Or hopefully after the next contract, they just don't have a contract. And I think just a lot of the drama that followed the sport all year, right? We knew about this lawsuit between 23XI and FRM and NASCAR since last December. It's been a full calendar year since this lawsuit has come into light. And we've had that. I think the media handled it very well, actually, not bringing it up. And when they did bring it up, only bringing it up in a small way that didn't take away from the product that we were watching. So props to the media, even Fox Sports on that one. But that drama, you feel it. You feel that build up throughout the year, right? As these settlement talks grow and, we can't reach a settlement. Maybe now we can. No, we can't do it now. Things like that for a fan do take away from the meaning and from what happens, right? There were more than a few weeks' time this year that 23XI and FRM were open teams. And I don't want that to get lost from fans. They were open teams. They made a lot less money. They probably lost a few $1 million because they were open teams because of this lawsuit. And given the fact that in some respect, I do think they've probably saved the long term of this sport, I don't want that to get lost on fans. That's a sacrifice that those two teams made for us, for our enjoyment. There was selfish endeavorments in there too, right? Because as a business, they need to survive and thrive. They're not doing that under this current agreement that they have. But that drama that just envelops the sport does take away from the product, and it does hurt the fan perception of the sport. I probably had a higher level of disinterest in the sport this season than I've had ever since I started watching. And that's really saying something, because I love racing. It's a part of me. It'll always be a part of me. And anybody that I know who knows me knows that. But I was more willing to miss a race this year. Admittedly, on Twitter, at the end of the year, I had a few life things going on that I probably didn't need to prioritize and miss as many races as I did at the end of the year. But I chose to. I needed to step away. And I'm hoping to remain a little bit distanced this offseason just because of all the BS that happened in 2025. I want to go into 2026 refreshed, feeling like I want to be around the sport. And I hope that's how a lot of other fans who I know are starting to feel burnout over everything. I hope that's how they all feel, refreshed and ready to go for 2026 when Daytona comes around.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time, I think, today, and us as a fan base, we spent a lot of time looking at how in a lot of ways, we're getting screwed. Based on the product, based on the cost, because we look at this in a different prism. We're getting older, we have other responsibilities, we have other things in life, and cost basis, it's not just for the teams, but for fans. Fans, it's a cost to go. I'm having to make my plans out months in advance. Granted, I have a significant other that's big on doing that, but, to go to Watkins Glen for IMSA. We're planning on doing Pocono for a day trip. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to see NHRA. When it comes to that and the way that the world works and, whatever, good, bad, and different, you need to prioritize fans more, and you need to prioritize building, giving opportunities or going and creating opportunities where the youth can actually experience it and have fun. Should be fun. That's what it was. When, for me, it was a fascination of cars going fast. I didn't care that they were going around in circles. They looked cool. These guys were, most of them had bad mullets and mustaches back in the day. Some of them still do today. But the fact of the matter is, at least there's a personality connected to them, and you see, some of them have personalities. I'm basically Blaney and maybe about 3 other people, and the rest of them have the personality of this book. But the thing is, there should be a connection to it. We're all here because we have a connection to it. Whether it was, Davey Allison and Tony Stewart, and et cetera, Ernie Irvin, or Dale Jr., or whoever. The thing is, it's not a case of people wanting to hate on the sport just to hate on the sport. You've made it that way. You, meaning the people in Daytona, the Daytona Beach Mafia, going and sitting there making a spec car and going and fighting back against teams who want to actually make it worthwhile, fighting back against one of your best drivers in the sport for 20 years, and then also fighting back against one of the greatest athletes of all time, which is probably the biggest, amongst all the bad decisions NASCAR made in recent times, I think that might be one of the worst miscalculations they've made, deciding they were going to fight Michael Jordan and think they were going to win. And then not understanding, and then not having the foresight to understand what discovery is. Because, I mean, it kind of fulfilled some of my beliefs and thoughts about some of the people that run the sport. But the fact that it almost like a double or triple or quadruple down on how bad they are. And it kind of goes back to when Tony was at the end of his career. And Tony literally, I think he said this on a interview deal with Kyle Petty. And he said, we were sitting there with NASCAR executives telling them how we need to do this so that it'll actually be better for the sport and for whatever. And this NASCAR executive, who I won't name, I mean, quote, I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember the exact quote. And he's like, basically was telling us it was whatever you're saying is 180 degrees of what NASCAR's all about or wanting to be. This is back in 2016. We're in 2026. So this is a NASCAR Hall of Famer, one of the greatest race car drivers of all time, and until a couple of years ago, a car owner in this sport. A man who's owned race cars in multiple series, owns his own Top Fuel and Funny car in NHRA now, owns a sprint car team. You know, like, you're going to end the guy as a Hall of Fame race car driver. And you're going to just basically say, well, yeah, you're full of crap. But then these are the same people that were afraid of SRX, which was literally Paul Tracy destroying equipment like an inbred dipshit that he is, and then a bunch of old guys driving around in late models on CBS and ESPN. That's that, you fear that, but you wouldn't listen to the guy. Like, let's go and bring it back to where you have intelligent people that understand the sport. That might actually give you a chance to at least reconnect with some of those people that you probably lost a good amount of the base. You aren't losing any of us. That's never, I mean, there's a reason why I have die casts and helmets and all these things in front of me. And I have pictures over there and all. I'm a mark. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be a mark for the rest of my life. But you can't find people like us. Like, that's the thing. You need people like us for it to thrive. That's really the gist of it. Whatever they come up with as a playoff format, sure, everybody and their mother basically knows it, so it's typical NASCAR sitting here. You know, what are they going to do? They're going to bring BZF out drunk to go and come back out of nowhere to go and tell us, oh, we're going to have a 4-race championship final. Like, just shut up. Just get it over with. Give us a goddamn press release. Let Pockrass and all these other guys go and sit there and do their stupid hits on it. Let's just get it over with. Let's find out. Because we need to find out what we're going to see. Because in 2026. Like, I think the Truck Series, for as bad of a coverage as the Truck Series gets, the Truck Series actually has hope, in large part because of the introduction of Ram and Colleague Racing into the series. The amount of late model standouts that are there, it kind of brings an old school vibe to the Truck Series once again. Last night I was watching an old race at I-70 Speedway. I think it was Tony Raines, the first Dodge win for them in trucks. And you saw that old school feel of the series and all that stuff, and it's like, there's hope there. But are they going to gain that? Are they going to jump on that? Xfinity's to be determined. You lost the big star in Connor Zilic. Of course, he's going to be a Cup driver. Fine. You have some veteran guys, a couple veteran guys. You have some young guns that may be waiting to take that next step, to be determined. Cup Series, we have a different playing field in the sense of what ownership is for the sport. We're going to have a competitive qualifying, hopefully, for the Daytona 500. But after Daytona, like, what are we going to have? And that's really what we have to see. But I guess we got 6-7 weeks to find out how that all starts off. But go and get in a foosball, Bobby. Better not catch you playing that foosball. The current, the playoff picture is pretty straightforward at this point. I think in terms of number one seed, there are machinations. In terms of, for me as a 49ers fan, it's win against the Seahawks on Saturday night after they were able to hold on, and after not being able to hold back the Bears all night, probably put my blood pressure through the roof. They were able to make one stop and beat Seattle on Saturday. They get the number one seed. And for as long as they last in the playoffs, the road goes through there. I mean, the road goes through there anyway, but it's a case of if San Francisco is going to participate. Bears and Eagles are battling for the 2 seed. Packers are locked into the 7. And then in the NFC South, that game at 4:30 on Saturday will determine who wins the NFC South, and will host.
Because the Jaguars or the Falcons have to win. If the Falcons win, then Carolina wins. But if they lose, because there's like that 3-way tiebreaker. So
yeah, if Carolina wins, that's true. If Carolina wins, okay. If Tampa Bay wins, and then on Saturday, then Atlanta wins on Sunday, then Carolina wins too. But Carolina gets the division. So Tampa, it's a problem for Tampa, but then they've caused it by playing bad. Carolina can save themselves a lot of agina and just go out there and win, but when you can say that the New Orleans Saints have been the best team in your division for the last month, and they're 5-10 or 5-11, it looks like a one and done scenario. Good luck. You're going to get to face either whoever wins that gets to face a pissed off either 49ers or Seahawks team having to go on the road. So good luck, guys. There are other machinations there in terms of, but there is that. Broncos, Patriots, Jaguars, there's all in terms of the number one overall seed. Of course, Jags have to beat Tennessee, and then need help from both the Chargers and the Dolphins to go and have a chance at the number one, right? But then there's also other things probably you can possibly move up there. Texans are in the playoffs. They are going to be playing Indy. I think there is seeding opportunity to move around between Texans, Chargers, and Bills. The only thing that's left in that is, of course, Steelers and the Ravens. They'll be playing on Sunday Night Football for the final spot. And whoever plays that gets to go and probably face an upstart team. If it's the Texans, they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Chargers have been battling all year. Bills, they got Josh Allen. So I mean, it's for the Patriots, if they have to play the Bills again, that would be insane. And then I think a Jaguar Charger game, if that's what ends up happening, would be an interesting one as well. And whoever wins the AFC North having to host the Texans if things stay as is I think that's where it stands in a playoff picture. Yeah. So, excuse me. So, need week 18 win playoff. Yeah. So, I mean, for you, Josh, I mean, the Jags going out there, keep on winning too. The Niners, I don't know. We lost Trent Williams on the first play of the game. He's not going to be playing tomorrow, probably. Kittle's back after being out a week. But Niners are going to be missing a bunch of key guys trying to beat Seattle for a 1 seed. But you guys are well in play to possibly go and make it run through Duval.
Yeah. Jacksonville, obviously, Sunday, got to beat the Titans to win the division. And then, more than likely it will be the 3rd seed. Still some hope for the number 1 seed, if they go through and beat the Titans, and then they're going to need help from the Chargers and the Dolphins, which at this point is unlikely because they're both playing their backups, I think. I mean, the Dolphins are basically finished. They, benched Tua, right? And Quinn Ewers is playing for them as their backup quarterback, and then the Chargers are resting their starters to get healthy for the playoffs. So, going to be a tall order there, but it's still mathematically possible. So, which I'll be really celebrating if the Jags are the number 1 seed in the NFL, because then they can let the rest of the AFC eliminate themselves in the wild card round, and then handle business divisional round, and then the national media will have to come to Jacksonville for the AFC Championship game, and then all this media that's been talking bad about us this whole year, they'll have to find some hotel on the west side that's real crummy or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I talked bad about you." So, we'll see what happens here. So, but I'm as confident as ever for the Jaguars. I mean, they've played really good throughout the year, and they beat half the playoff field already. So, 'cause they beat Denver, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Texans once, lost to them once, so they split with them in the division. So, they played them there, and then the rest of the other teams, I mean, the Ravens aren't really that good. The Steelers aren't really that good. You know, the Bills are vulnerable. I mean, Josh Allen's injured, so we'll see how that game plays out on Sunday with the Jets and the Bills. So for playoff seeding purposes, so there's still a lot to play for here. So Jacksonville take care of business here on Sunday and win the game. 12-point favorites right now, so should be good there. And then we'll see who they face in the playoffs Yeah, right now they're playing. I think they're projected to play the Chargers, but that could change if the Chargers lose and the Bills win. Then they would play the Bills, I think. So, in the wild card round, if all things hold, but things stay the same, then it'd be a rematch of the playoffs from a couple years ago with the Chargers and the Jaguars. So, we'll see. I'm talking to my brother and see if he wants to go to that game because he likes the Chargers and all that. So, another rivalry game there. But yeah, really excited. See what happens in the playoffs. Obviously we've been talking offline about it and everything, and if all things hold true, I mean, maybe we'll see Jaguars and the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and yeah, no problem. Jacksonville can run the table like they did in the fourth game when they beat the San Francisco 49ers at home. So, or on the road at home for you guys. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, obviously looking forward to seeing this play out and everything. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting. Trevor Lawrence having best year of his career, which mid-season wasn't looking like it. It was looking up and down, but he's putting it all together, being the quarterback, the um, prince who was promised, as Nick Wright has had said in the past. He's starting to look like that. So yeah, really really looking forward to seeing this play out, and well, hopefully here in about a month we'll be really excited to see Jacksonville in the Super Bowl. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was looking at the it was a new, what is it, athletic article, and they were showing all the different scenarios, and I was trying to, the easiest one is obviously the win scenario. If the Niners lose, they'll likely have to go be a 6 seed, which would mean they'd have to play either Philly or Chicago in their home, then would have to go play either Seattle in Seattle, or however that would work out, and then on top of it's simple. The Niners have to win. If they don't, it's going to really be painful. Have to win, possibly have to go to Philly, Chicago, and Seattle to play at home for a possible Super Bowl, but I don't know how that would work. For as bad as Philly has been, they're liable to switch it on in the playoffs. And they still have a good solid enough defense. Offense is questionable. Chicago, we just saw what they're capable of. Defense is vulnerable for sure, but and then we just talked about the NFC South, so see what happens. And we'll talk about it next week on episode 297 of the GSP, close to 300. It's crazy to think, all these years ago. 7 seasons of this show, too. It's amazing. Let us get over, Dakar Rally will be starting here tomorrow officially. We're on Friday. But it'll be on Saturday. It will be the prologue. Plenty of Americans in the race. Of course, Ricky Brabeck, the 2-time winner on the motorcycle class, and his better half, Sarah Price, running in the stock class with the Defender team. One of 7 vehicles, so good opportunity there for her to get a win in class. After 2 weeks, as long as the vehicle can last. She's teammates with the legend Stefan Petterhansel. There's a lot of other American riders. Of course, we have legendary rally drivers like Sebastian Loeb and Carlos Sainz Sr. and the like. In the cars class, Ford has a big presence with Red Bull, with the Ranger. They'll also have Christina Gutierrez, another great female racer. So, there's a lot of drivers we'll be looking at. Of course, I'll focus on the big names with Americans here as we get through the rally itself. Will be, of course, a 2-week rally. Logan Sargent is going to make a Rolex 24 debut with Era Motorsports in the LMP2 category. We have IHRA. The guy who bought the IHRA is buying anything and everything. He bought Maple Grove Raceway. He just bought Rockingham. So, of course, that's Xfinity and trucks will be racing there, I think, during Easter weekend. So, this guy has been buying up a bunch of series. There's going to be a Stock Car series, IHRA Stock Car series. So, something to look at, of course, with the NHRA. They're in their 60th year of existence. But I think it's a time for them where they're in a transition. They lost some opportunities and lost some tracks that have been a part of their deal for a long time. And you look at some of these other lists, reveal Richard, go through, there's any type of news. Nothing stands out. I mean, we still don't know for sure where Austin Prock's going to be racing this season. I think they're saying that he'll be driving the second Ford with Bob Tasca, but that's to be determined. Of course, Tony is going to be racing with Elite Motorsports this year, with R&L Carriers as a sponsor. There's also John Force as basically a brand new team, with Josh Hart moving over to take over for Brittany Force. You also have Lexus DeJoria moving over there, and then they hired Jordan Vandergrift to take over the car that was driven by Austin Prock. So they'll be running with a lot of new people there. Not more to come, and I think something that'll be very interesting to look at is what drag racing looks like by the end of the year, after all these people that are investing and buying and doing the like. So, okay. I got some of the formula. In practice. Well, yeah. But he wants to probably go back to do it right, make it seem like he isn't just the product of the bike. But, yeah, well, the F1 regulations are terrible this last bit too, but that's probably why they wanted it that way, so Lewis would struggle. Yeah, so let's see, Toyota, Prince Sport Zone. Oh, okay. So that's acquiring that team, so then interesting. All right. We are, okay, so, all right. So something we'll also look at in rallying with the new changes in World WRC with the Rally 2 cars. Last year, the Rally 1 formula, the new Rally 2 formula, I think, coming in 2027, there might be more manufacturer involvement, hopefully more opportunities for drivers, likes of, just saw a clip of, why am I forgetting now? Colin McRae's son driving European Rally Championship. Then you think about Leah Block, who's committed to going back to rallying. Could be an opportunity for some young standouts and stars to get back or get into rallying in the main rally class, World Rally Championship, as they're looking at a North American round of the championship too. Or American round of the championship, which would be huge as well. So, see what happens with that. Yeah, so let us move into the sim segment. Josh, first one for 2026. Let us know what's going on iRacing and gaming, and things that we should be looking at as we are moving into it's season 1 on iRacing, right? So for the new year. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right now, season 1 for iRacing on 2026. I think, yeah, for me, the focus right now is the 24 hours of Daytona for iRacing. More than likely, I think, yeah, I should be able to do that. I haven't signed up yet for a team, but I planning to do that here in next couple of days. More than likely, race LMP2 class again, like I did last year. Really like that car. I think it's a solid platform. You're not in kind of the mess that GT3 kind of ends up being, and I think it's competitive enough. Whereas GTP is a lot of guys that are really, really good and really fast and everything, and then I think GTP is just a little bit too, chaotic as well, so, LMP2 I think has enough balance between, um, I guess from a competitive standpoint, from, compared to GT3 and, the, GTP class, so, um, yeah, I should be joining the Sim Party, racing team again for that, so, it's a good group of, iRacing road racers to be in, with, so, yeah, looking forward to running that, um and I guess as far as all the other stuff on iRacing, I mean, kind of been a little bit on a break, here the last couple of weeks just with, holiday time and, all that stuff. So I haven't really actually ran too much iRacing, but I've kind of been, watching film, I guess, to, I guess, get ready for the 24 hours, trying to, improve my lap time and everything for LMP2 and getting a good, uh, good pace for that. So, trying to look at what some of the, more advanced people are doing, lap times wise to, get a good lap and be consistent there. So, um, want to, be competitive enough among my teammates and stuff to, not just be the slow guy there or whatever. But yeah, I mean, as far as like regular iRacing content goes, looking at the news here, I think the iRacing Chili Bowl is coming up, so that's I think that's another big event here on iRacing for 2026. So I think that's on the table there. I mean, obviously you've got other series, the Winter NASCAR iRacing Series there with the 87 cars been going on the last couple of weeks. Um, the I guess the Rain Master Challenge, they are doing that at the Miami Grand Prix track, so that looks like that should be interesting. I hate to hate to be in that one because that looks like the rain, as much performance as it takes to display the rain on iRacing, and then also displaying the Miami Grand Prix. That's probably a huge graphic hit right there. But that should be interesting for those that are playing in there. So. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting here, with iRacing. I think all the special events. I don't know if Dale Jr. is doing that because he did last year. They did a special event or benefiting Driven to Give. So I don't know if he's doing that again. I didn't see that on the schedule here, but be getting ready for Rolex 24, and then soon after that'll be Daytona 500 time. So, yeah, it should be interesting here on iRacing, and then I guess at some point I have to download NASCAR 25. Still haven't gotten around to that yet, but I was thinking about just downloading it um on my PC so I don't have to. Because I guess we play controller and all that, but I don't have the sim or the right steering wheel for that's compatible with PlayStation. So, 'cause mine's too old, but maybe I'll just download it on Steam or something and play on PC and everything. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I know Joe's been on NASCAR 25 because I've seen him on Discord, his status there. So, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I let me tell you, I have all the NASCAR games, maybe with the exception of like one or two of the arcade style games and 21 Ignition from like 2001 to today. So I was very excited when they announced that they were going to make NASCAR 25. I pre-ordered it, got the gold edition, I don't know, whatever the hell the highest tier was. And I am having so much fun with that game. I am playing on a controller. I am working on getting non-controller racing equipment. In fact, MPI released a set of Dale Jr. wheels Josh, you and I were talking about, and I may or may not get my hands on one relatively soon. But I'm working on getting some either Logitech or maybe Fanatec or Moza. At some point, Josh, I'll reach out. I have so many questions. But I'm doing it on a console. I'm doing it on Xbox. So my dad, too, he wants to get into it a little bit. So that'll be fun for me and him to try to do. But I'm having a lot of fun with NASCAR 25. I'll tell you, I was really skeptical. And it wasn't all, sunshine and rainbows. The Roval was probably a terrible pick in first track to try to race in the game. But it's definitely, there's a level of realism in the car itself, how the car handles, how it changes over the run. There's a level of realism that exists in this game that I think supersedes former titles in the series. I would like to see the interface, what you actually see on the screen. I would like to see that interface beefed up a little bit more. It feels a little too minimal, and it's a little too small to see unless I'm playing on my little monitor right here. But it's been a lot of fun. I've had so much fun with that game. I would say it's definitely worth the download. Career mode is the way to go. I spend a lot of hours in career mode, which is unusual. I usually get sick of career mode after a season, but I'm having a lot of fun with that game.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, need to get on it and everything. So we'll see. I'll let you know when I do. I think it does allow crossplay. So I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I am pretty sure it does, at least between Xbox and PC, or Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know if it does. I'm sure it would do PC.
It's on the same platform.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let you know when I get on that and everything and all that. So, yeah, I'll just, start off on the flows and everything. Yeah, for me, obviously, you can follow the iRacing streams when I'm on there. Twitch TV, UCLR2, you go on there and watch all my streams and everything. So, yeah, should have the Rolex 20 Daytona 24 hours of iRacing on there. So, should be interesting, should be fun as well. Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter, JP Huffine, and then you can also follow us, Gripster Podcast on YouTube, and see us on there, subscribe, and we'll have this up there in a couple days. And then, of course, follow my photography page at Josh Huffine Photography on Instagram. You can see all the pictures I've posted. Posted a couple of pictures lately here with some stuff I hadn't posted yet in 2025, so that's up there as well. And then I also posted if you go on the IndyCar and NASCAR subreddit, I posted some of my pictures on there just to share with those communities, and those have done well on there. So you can just go in there and look at that. So yeah, good to start off 2026. Glad 2025 is over and everything, and hopefully we have lots of good racing and lots of good football here for the next month or so to talk about.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Passero Jr. And you can follow me my Instagram photography, very similar to Josh's, photography by Joe P. As I kind of stated earlier in the show, I'm taking a step back during the off season, just trying to refresh. So you won't see too much activity from me for probably the next month. And then in February, we'll kick it back into gear. I've got a few things personally going on, and also just after a really long season that's felt kind of up and down emotionally, kind of had a lot happening throughout the year, racing related. I think it's important to take a step back and breathe some fresh air, touch some grass, if you will. So more so working on that, just enjoying the things I've got going on a personal level. And then when February comes around, you'll start to see more content from me. I'm really excited for what 2026 holds. Thanks, guys, for having me on, and can't wait to do it again.
Thanks for being able to be on, Joe. It's always great to have you. And, of course, Josh, my sidekick, my good buddy, and tag team partner in this deal. It's great that, we're able to do this on second day of the year here, 2026, 7 seasons of this show, and getting close to episode 300. Would have never thought something that started during COVID time, I guess a grain of like a little grain of an idea, that came from one show, would, get to this point, but, grateful to have it. And it's nice to be able to talk shop with both you guys, just in general, but, when do we do it here too? And, look forward to doing more of it as we go through another season of motorsports. A lot of changes that have gone on in 2020, the end of 2025 and going into 2026. So let's see what happens with that. You can find me at PGMGSP28 on Instagram, Blue Sky PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. Of course, the Gripster Podcast YouTube page, where all the shows, the video feed, is handled by Josh. And then also GSP 1428, that's my personal page. That page has the audio feeds whenever the executive producer tries not to be Baba Booey and posts it. You can also find the Gripster Podcast at philipgmatthew.com, which is a blog page as well. And you can find the Gripster Podcast at podbean.com, our host site. So with that, hoping Bang Bang Niner Gang, hopefully we can get this victory and not have to go on the road for 3 games. Make sure that it all comes through Levi Stadium, literally and figuratively. But we have to go out there and play a good game. But we'll see what happens with that. Thanks, Josh and Joe, for your time, of course, today on an off day. And thanks for listening to the Gripster Podcast. And we'll be back next week to talk about everything, preview the NFL playoffs, go and review the first couple of days of the Dakar Rally, any news and notes that comes up in the world of motorsports, to see if there's any other series that we need to recap. I think we got all of them. But if we have one, we'll go and talk about it. If not, we'll talk about football. We have plenty of football to talk about. So with that, for Joe and for Josh, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.